The Authority Hangout. Conversations with the top SEOs, community managers, content marketers, and thought leaders in the digital marketing space. Join us to learn more about optimizing your online presence and growing your brand's authority. Welcome to the Authority Hangout. I'm Michelle Stinson-Ross, part of the Authority Labs team. Today our discussion is about Periscope, marketing, maybe a little Meerkat, and what to do with all that content after you've created it. Today's moderator is Melissa Fach, also of Authority Labs. Melissa, over to you.
Hey everybody. Today we have two fantastic ladies that know a lot about Periscope. I'm going to be honest and say I know absolutely nothing beyond that it exists. So I'm going to be here to learn as well. I want to give our guests a little bit of a chance to introduce themselves. Why don't we start with you, Andrea?
Hi, I'm Andrea Kozrakadu. I do a lot of digital marketing and strategy. I started doing Periscope for work. I work for a digital data company, and I started doing it at a trade show and kind of ran with it and started scoping chats, and yeah, pretty much do it all.
Cool. Thank you. And Madalyn?
Yeah, hey everybody, my name is Madalyn Sklar and I'm a social media strategist. I've been helping business owners for the last 19 years with online strategies, and in the last 10 years I've really focused on social media, and I love helping people with Twitter. But since Periscope and Meerkat came out, I have jumped on it. I have found great ways to use it for business, and I can't wait to talk about it today.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's jump into our first question. Michelle was explaining to me that Meerkat and Periscope really only give you an option for a title. You can't like create a lot of, like a meta description or anything else. So what are your best practices that you've discovered when you're creating titles to help people find you better or to pull them into your videos?
Well, Andrew, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I would recommend with one, if you're SEO conscious and making sure that if you can fit in your SEO keywords nicely, then do it, and also hashtag them. And then especially if you have like a branded hashtag, then I would recommend doing that. But I would keep it simple and brief, but to the point at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, the titles are really important, and finding ways. It's a trial and error kind of thing is what I found, is trying things and see what works. Because some things will work and some don't, and I'll see people using these crazy titles, and I'm like, oh, it must be grabbing attention, and then I'll do it, and it doesn't work.
Okay.
It's frustrating. So trial and error, see what works for you, because what works for somebody else may not work for you.
Right.
Great.
Well, and if I can toss in a comment here, Periscope in particular, with its association and relationship with Twitter, as that pushes through Twitter, we're also talking about the exposure that our Periscope videos get via tweet in search.
Right.
So there is some additional latent value. What are you guys playing with? Okay, how does this propagate through Periscope, Twitter, search? Is there consideration going on in your mind yet about that sort of stuff?
It is for me, just because Google is indexing tweets right now, so I'm very mindful of that, and that's why I have such an emphasis on SEO, because whatever you have in that title, especially if you connect with Catch, and if it replays, then that is going to boost your SEO. Maybe not right away, but you'll eventually start building authority in Periscope and also on Twitter for that topic and those keywords.
That's a good point.
Okay, so my next question is, let's just say you're an ordinarily small business, right? You have your small business. Should you be jumping into Periscope? Who is Periscope for? I mean, a lot of businesses are trying to jump on every social trend that comes down the line. Who would you recommend uses Periscope?
I think Periscope is for everyone, and let me give you some examples. So yesterday, I was interviewing for my Twitter Smarter podcast Ryan Steinolfson, and he's known as Periscope Ryan. So he's become one of the leaders over on Periscope, and he was talking about how he was showing a dentist how to use Periscope. And we're probably thinking, well, how could a dentist, like what would a dentist possibly do with Periscope? And I happened to be on the scope when he brought them on several weeks ago and giving them, ways of how to do it. And so this particular dentist has developed this technology to do a particular procedure that they call like the gummy smile or something. And he showed them how by just simply getting on Periscope and using this to talk to people and explain the procedure and show some images and then they show video. And people were fascinated on the scope. They're like, several people said, sign me up. Wherever you're located, I'm going to fly to and have you do this procedure for me. It was pretty amazing, and just showing an example with a dental practice I thought was just really interesting. But then you have the rest of us, marketers and social media people, and it's like, well, we can use it in a lot of really cool ways. But I think it just depends on what the business is, what are their goals, and I think probably the biggest thing right now is everybody that's interested needs to not jump too quickly, because so many people are doing it wrong right now, and that can really tarnish a business. So it's really important to step back, look at what everybody's doing, and do that for several weeks, and make notes. And here's another example. So Brian Honigman is a guy that writes for like Forbes and Inc. magazine and like all these big publications on the subject of social media. And he did his first scope yesterday, and I just happened to catch it. And he did such a good job. His topic was how to write for big publications. I'm sure that's the biggest questions he's asked, because if you write for the Wall Street Journal, I'm sure people hound you like, hey, how can I write for the Wall Street Journal? So he did a very good scope. It was about 10 minutes long, which was perfect. He really had it well thought out, and I was so impressed by it. And I'm like, that's how people need to do it. They need to take their time and look and see how other people are doing it, so that they don't jump in and do the titles wrong, and you're staring at a screen and they're not talking in the beginning. So many people do that. Like, they just have you stare at a screen and there's silence, and it's like, okay, why am I here?
I definitely agree with you there. It's definitely something that, with all social media, you really need to listen, and you need to observe. I think there is this is a really good opportunity for maybe the not so well known and people who are trying to build their brand and their business, especially the smaller guys, to develop more of a presence online than before. Just because you can connect, it's seemingly one-on-one, right? Because you're live and you can interact with people who are talking to you back to you. So you're humanizing yourself right away, and I think that's really, really, really important right now.
Yeah. Michelle, did you have something you wanted to add?
As far as just, there's a lot of time that needs to be spent playing with this, but interestingly enough, School Communicators Network just popped into our Q&A and asked us, just really basically, can you demonstrate how Periscope works? There's a lot of us, and I know like you, Melissa, that are new to this and haven't seen how it works, and they're like, okay, you've got my interest. Show me how this works. So we'll see what we can do. Andrea, you want to kind of jump into this first?
Sure. So in terms of like actually getting started, or?
Let's just go over the basics a little bit. Yeah, okay. Getting started, setting up an account, what devices is it available on, that kind of stuff.
So it's available on both iOS and Android. So before it was only iOS. And you used to only be able to do it with just a Twitter account, but now you can actually use your phone number. So whatever you want to do, if I suggest that if you do have a Twitter account, you connect your Twitter account, because then it'll share it with your audience on Twitter, and you get more bang for your buck. You also, in your settings, want to make sure that you turn on this feature called autosave. And what that does is it saves it to your phone. And once that saves to your phone, then you can use that video, tweak it, and share it across all your content avenues. But that feature is super, super important. And then basically, you want to make sure that your bio, you fill out your bio. And I'm an SEO gal, right? So my brain is always thinking, okay, what website do I want to put in there, because that website link is actually clickable. So, and also what keywords do I want in there. So I make it, if you link your Twitter profile, it pretty much takes your Twitter bio, but I recommend you make it slightly different, because your audience on Periscope may be different because they're not necessarily following you on Twitter. So just be mindful of that, be mindful of your keywords, be mindful that your audience is a little bit different. Those are the things right off the top of my head. Madalyn?
Yeah, just go through, each item when you're setting it up, and make sure you do have it set up to tweet on Twitter, because every time you do a Periscope broadcast, you want it to definitely go out to Twitter, because sometimes people are not doing the notifications. I have to periodically turn my notifications off because I just get too, it's such a distraction. It's a good distraction, but it can sometimes be too much. So sometimes somebody will notice it on your Twitter feed and go, oh, they're doing a broadcast right now. So that can be very beneficial. Make sure you have the setting turned on to save your videos, so as soon as you're done, you don't have to remember to manually do that. You want it to be automatic. That's really important. And when you're setting it up, you can have the bio be anything you want, and you can get very creative. And I see a lot of people using the emojis in there, coming up with really cool and unique ways. When you first set it up, it just draws in your Twitter bio, but you can go in and tweak it up and make it more for Periscope, because, like Andrea says, it's different people over there, and there's going to be some of your Twitter followers over there, but you're going to find that you'll start building a group of people that are just very specific on that platform.
Cool. Just to make sure that we are being perfectly clear, I know that they both mentioned that this is available on Android and Apple iOS. To be perfectly clear, there is no web-based version of this. It is a mobile app, so you can use it on a smartphone. You can also use it on a tablet. I know with Meerkat, I actually use the iPad version of the Meerkat app, as well as my smartphone version of Periscope. So both apps take you step by step through signing up and how it works, all that kind of stuff. There have already been a lot of great articles and demonstrations I noticed out there as far as kind of the how-tos and what to expect. There's really already some great articles on just how to kind of jump in and get started. And what I will do when I do the recap is I will link you guys to some of these other resources, as well as throw some thoughts into the recap myself. So fear not, we're going to make sure that this is well covered for you guys. Melissa, you want to take over the next question?
Yeah, I had a question for you all. The app, does it allow you to edit your video all that much, or how does that work?
No, you can't edit it. Look, it's live streaming, right? So sometimes we're gonna have typos, or we're gonna, maybe have a false start, or the background doesn't work, whatever. My recommendation for you then is to go through right away and delete it. And then also, if you're sharing it to Twitter, make sure you go back and delete it there too. But no, you can't edit it. You can only edit after it's done through whatever app you choose.
Okay. All right, great. So that kind of goes into our question we discussed, Michelle, about how should marketers balance the live versus the polished videos, you might see on YouTube or video. What would you tell businesses about the benefits of having live streaming?
Madalyn, do you want to take this one first, then I'll...
Sure. Well, live streaming definitely has its benefits. I think first and foremost is that it's real, it's authentic, it's transparent. When you're doing a recorded video, while it's great and has its purposes all across the board, it's easy to not see the authenticity in the people and in what your message is. But when you are live streaming, and there's so many different ways of doing a live stream. I mean, I was watching one yesterday with Lewis Howes, who's a lifestyle entrepreneur. He is writing a new has a new book that's about to be released, and he has a large built-in audience. But yesterday he was just kicking back on his sofa, holding up his phone, talking to his audience about his upcoming new book. And you just can't get more real and authentic than that. And he brings you into his home. And it was really cool. So I see that in that capacity with the realness that people are people like that. I think people will want to do business with you even more so when you bring them in that way. So I just think that we're seeing this new trend that, and live stream's been around for a while. I mean, we haven't even gotten into that, but it's not brand new. A lot of people are like, oh my God, this is so new and cool, and it's been around a long time. It's just that the technology finally caught up to make it super simple and easy, where with one tap of your screen, you're now live streaming. But I think we're going to see this not replace your recorded videos, but a way to enhance your marketing through live streaming.
So I totally agree with you there, Madalyn. I talk a lot about humanizing your brands, and I say that when I work with a company called Inviter. I say that when I'm working B2B with my day job. So it's people want to connect with a person. They want to feel like they're talking to you one-on-one. Obviously, through video, we're not always talking one-on-one. So right now we're addressing. It feels like I'm talking to you one-on-one, but we're actually addressing quite a large audience, right? So I think another really big benefit is you actually get to experiment more on Periscope. So yes, you're going to have these recorded videos, and I still do the recorded scripted videos after I do Periscope. I test it out on Periscope first. I test out the messaging. I test out the flow. And if I see that I'm getting a lot of engagement, then maybe I'll do that and maybe have it a little bit more polished before I record. So.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, the one issue that I have with businesses is they tend to have their little professional, this is who we are. Mm-hmm. But people want more than that today. They want to get you and feel you before they choose to invest. So I think this is a really interesting way to reach your audience. What are some of the pitfalls you all see of the live streaming? I mean, I know sometimes people say things that because they haven't really been thinking, and they might blurt out something offensive. What are some other things that you all think people should kind of keep an eye on?
Okay, so I'm a little weird because I believe that who you are online should be who you are offline. You should accurately represent yourself, right? At least, and it's all about personal brand. So we always should be aware of what we're saying and doing, because you never know when someone is watching. And in my world, I'm being watched all the time. I mean, not in a creepy way, but in a people are curious to see what you have to say kind of way. So be mindful of that. Be mindful that it's on there forever and ever and ever, and it's gonna haunt you if you say something stupid. So don't say anything stupid. 2, it's okay if you make mistakes. Okay, and by mistakes I mean, if you stutter or whatever, imperfection is fine, right? And sometimes I do it all the time. But it's also, one thing you also have to keep in mind is your privacy and the privacy of your company, to make sure you're not violating any copyright issues, non-disclosures, all that. So just keep in mind the guidelines that you are restricted by, and that you're not violating any of them.
I agree with all of that. I think that's very well said, Andrea. And so yeah, I'm like, I don't think there's really much I could add to that, because I mean that's really it. I mean, be yourself. If you don't like how it comes out, delete it. Don't post it on YouTube afterwards. You have that control. But there are going to be times where it just doesn't come out right, and you fumble over your words, and it's okay. I mean, I do a podcast, and I have the ability to edit, which is awesome. But I also don't really like to edit. I want it to be real, and I want it to be authentic. And when you're doing live stream, there's no edit. There's no edit button. So you could just stop your broadcast and start over, But yeah, I just think that, you just do the best you can, and don't overthink and worry about it so much.
Yeah, and I think the reason that Hangouts and podcasts have done so well in the last few years is people get to see real, not the polished perfection. It allows you to get to know people a little bit better.
I totally agree. And, because of that, it really ramps up the know, like, and trust factor.
Right.
And that's really important because, when you think back, say, 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, I mean, before I was in this, prior to 20 years ago, I was in the financial world, helping people with mutual funds and annuities. And, everything was so stuffy. And, when you had videos and audios, it was just stuffy, and you just didn't, it was always about the company, not the people. And so today, here we are all these years later, and with technology, it's the people more so than the brand. I mean, look at a company like Hootsuite. Hootsuite is this huge company. They're doing great things, but they do cool things like I just heard that they let employees take over the Periscope and run with it and show off the human side. And you've probably been hearing this, instead of the B2B and the B2C, you're now hearing H to H, human to human.
Right. Yes.
And the live streaming technology now, I think I think H to H is going to be the thing we hear about all the time, and I think live streaming is getting us there.
So I'm going to share a story with you guys about one of the first things that I was testing with Periscope was prior to, it was in May, I was preparing for a trade show. And this was a huge trade show for us because we were anticipating getting a whole bunch of leads. Maybe we were kind of at a disadvantage because our spot on the floor wasn't necessarily the best. So I decided to ramp up our exposure using Periscope. I started Periscoping on my personal one. I started Periscoping on our branded, and then I had our brand evangelist Periscope. So, and we would shoot 3 different ones. And what I found was that people actually came to our booth and said, "Hey, I saw your Periscope. I'm here. Give me my little." We had a little brains. We were handing out social media intelligence is what we were calling it then. So, but people the whole trust factor is really, really, really important, and it can help further increase your ROI in the long run.
Can I jump in a moment?
Sure.
Because this Periscope and Meerkat are both live conversations. It's not just the person that's on camera, although your spokesperson, whoever you're choosing, needs to have kind of an it factor and the ability to really work that camera well. But that's not the only kind of uncontrollable factor of these live broadcasts, because on both platforms, the viewers are able to type in comments. They're able to like, love. There are various ways that the viewers can give feedback in the moment. And we all know that with these apps and this kind of stuff, that as many cool people as there are around in this community, there are also a few, oh, no, we don't want to go. How do you deal with the fact that you're live in the moment, you cannot control what somebody else might post into your Periscope video? What do we need to be aware of in that regard?
So I'm laughing because this happens to me all the time. So
it does me too.
Right? So, and at first, the first couple times that I had some obnoxious comments, I'm like, what in the world is this? So, I would start off by either addressing them right away, and I found that when you do that, sometimes that eggs them on. So now I tell people ignore it, but then now in my scopes, depending on what they're for, right? And usually if I'm scoping, it's usually for some sort of professional reason. So I do state as a disclaimer, you're going to have XYZ happen in the background, but by the way, this is for work, or this is for this company. So please keep your comments appropriate. And then the people who don't keep the comments appropriate, I go back and I block them. Sorry.
Yeah, thank God for the blocking feature, because
Right.
it comes in handy.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know there was a blocking feature. These are good things to know.
Yeah, and I've seen people struggle, like when I'm watching somebody new, like, Derek Halpern just started scoping, and mentioned Lewis House, and so a lot of times they're kind of trying to figure this out as they go, and so what you need to keep in mind, and this is why, again, it's important for people and businesses to take your time and not rush to start this, watch how other people are doing it, because you'll learn basics like if you tap on the person, then you have the ability to block them, and as when you're running it. And then on the flip side, if you're watching a scope and you want to communicate with somebody that is saying something, you can tap on them, and there's a little reply button, which is really cool, and you can reply to them right during the conversation, which, there's all these little features that you figure out if you kind of pay attention and be a lurker for a while.
Yeah.
Cool. Can you all give us like some examples of how people could use Periscope creatively? Everyone's trying to create content, blog posts, content for social, a video. I mean, it's like a full-time job. So what are some creative ways to use Periscope in multiple ways? So you can cover more than just one task.
Madalyn, do you want to start and then I'll go?
Okay. I mean, I've seen some people doing some really, really creative things. Going back to Periscope Ryan, who's really, really popular, he'll do things like go walking down to the beach while holding the phone and periscoping and talking about whatever topic. So like getting out of the office and you were walking along with him. And I think that's pretty cool. Another thing that he's been doing and he's getting known for is interviewing really big people. And so he just did an interview a few weeks ago with the inventor of the Olo clip. And the Olo clip is one of those lenses you put over your phone that can do, like the fisheye and the wide angle and all the cool things. So it is becoming really popular with Meerkat and Periscope, because now instead of doing the broadcast with your phone and it's so close on your face, if you're using like an Olo clip or some of these other lenses, you now can like see the whole, like if I was using one right now, you'd see my whole office here, and I could have somebody right here to interview, and you would see both of us very easily. So what he did is he interviewed him first on his computer, like just through Skype. Like he did this elaborate setup where with being able to have a big screen behind him with the guy on there on Skype, and I think sometimes he does the Hangouts too, and have it so that you could see who he's interviewing and hear them. And then he actually went in person, and when he went in person a few weeks ago, they walked around the office, they went over to where they do the production. You got to see the ladies, putting together the Olo clips. It was really fascinating, and so I'm seeing things like that where you get these behind the scenes and get to be the fly on the wall, and those are my favorite types of scopes, because it is a great way to go from just shooting a plain video of that, which might not grab attention, to, hey, come join me where I'm going to ask this guy questions, and you can ask questions too right on the spot, and we'll have him answer it. And that's pretty cool to be able to do that. And I love the live Q&As. I mean, I think that's a really great way to use it as well, is just, people getting on there and saying, okay, ask me anything, doing the AMAs, ask me anything. It's just watching people just take this and do really creative things with it. It's really exciting.
So I agree with you on that stuff, because I mean the possibilities of Periscope, and then actually taking that content and making it even bigger is immense and exciting. And so here's what I've done, and by all means, this isn't like the end of the list, right? There's a million possibilities you could do this in it, and people are going to constantly discover stuff. So I'm a big fan of video marketing, first of all. So just full disclosure, I also work with a company called Inviter. So I've used them during my day job for I would take Periscope clips that I've done, and I would actually do like a video newsletter through Inviter. Or I also post them on YouTube, and then from YouTube I actually embed those into blog posts. Companies can also, or even just people in general, can just tweak or edit those videos, Periscope videos, into for Instagram, right? Because you only have 15 seconds on Instagram. For Facebook, you only have 45 minutes, right? So, and I say that because I scope social chat and then other Twitter chats, right? So right now I'm just doing the whole posting it on YouTube, but when I have time, I'm hoping that I can go through and just edit the video to the 45 minutes so it can actually be a Facebook native. And the same thing with other video channels is take it and edit it and use it across those multiple channels. So there's lots and lots of amazing things you can do with those videos after.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what's so great about it. When you're done, you've got the video, and then you can go and edit and put it out over all the social media sites onto YouTube, because as you know, it lives on in YouTube.
Right.
And that's the beauty of this, is the content and doing something with it afterwards. I think that's another struggle with people too, is they're doing it and then afterwards they're not taking it and putting it somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's something people really need to look at, is making a plan and making sure your plan includes what do you do next after you shut off the stream.
Yeah. So I talk a lot about integrated marketing. So Periscope needs to be, if you want to participate in Periscope and if you want to use it and humanize your brand and all these wonderful things, definitely include it in part of your integrated marketing strategy. So, because then you don't want to reinvent the wheel a million times over, and you want to scale. So definitely take advantage of that, and it helps build that human aspect. And so anyway, I could go on and on, so you guys stop me.
Well, and another point I want to make too. So it was really interesting. So when back to Periscope, Ryan. I don't mean to make this all about him, but when I was, so yesterday, I discovered him on Periscope. Great guy. He is teaching everybody on there how to use Periscope. It's really great. And so I reached out to him and I said, I really want to interview you for my podcast, even though it's a Twitter Tips podcast, because Periscope is owned by Twitter and it's aligned with Twitter. I still felt like this would be a good topic to have him come on and talk about, using Periscope and marketing yourself. And what he wants to do is he wants to know, he was asking me, well, okay, I'm doing all these Periscopes. I want to turn that into a podcast. Taking this content and doing other things with it, you can also take the audio, and that's what I was explaining to him. I told him, I said, I'll help you. We'll pull out the audio and then make it into a podcast. And so there, I don't know if people are really thinking about using your scopes that way, where I guess it depends on what the content is, but if you're doing Q&As, if you're doing interviews, you could certainly take that, because again, like Andrea's saying, why reinvent the wheel? I mean, just take the content and use it in another format afterwards.
Right.
Cool. And Andrea, you had mentioned, Michelle runs social chat on Twitter with Alan Connect. How, I know you all have discussed using Periscope in tandem with Twitter chats.
Yes.
How does that work, and why would people want to do that?
Okay, so I started doing this back in June just because I was experimenting with Periscope. What I do is I start about 15 minutes early before the chat starts, and I get it ready, and I kind of talk people through how I participate, how it works. And then what I do is I end up, I have Michelle and Alan are awesome because they have the chat questions up on their blog, socialchatnetwork.com. I am going to plug it, by the way, because I love them.
So you're making me plug.
But anyway, so I have the chat questions up. I have, a couple different, I have T-Chat up, and then I have the TweetDeck up. So when I kind of walk people through how to participate in a Twitter chat, and I tell them, look, you can, because when they watch me, they're just watching me, and they're just getting my rundown of the chat and my opinion of the chat, but they're not seeing all the comments. So I do read off some of the comments, the most important ones, and again, I stutter through it. Sometimes it comes out smoothly, sometimes it doesn't, because it happens a mile a minute, just like I'm talking to you right now. So it's just them really getting a view of my opinion and of my experience through it. But I always tell them, don't just watch me, get on and participate yourself. After that's done, then I do post it to YouTube, and I need to go through and do some editing. And then my plan is to post it on my blog on andreac.com, so that way with an actual written summary of what's actually happened. So yeah.
I think there's a lot of value in getting an editorialized version of a Twitter chat. So I think what Andrea is doing is really cool. When I was first asked to be on the social chat, I remember finding Andrea's live stream, and I'm like, this is badass. Oh my gosh, I am like so on top of this. And then Andrea and I just became like instant friends over it. And I'm like, this is so cool. So I think that number one is a great way to use Periscope, is doing something like that, because people are interested in that kind of content, and she does a really great job of it. So I think it's just awesome that week after week you can tune in and watch that, and I plenty of times I'm on there with her, watching and communicating with her while I'm on the chat. And I believe even when I was the guest, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Or when I was a guest? Yeah, so I do crazy things like that.
And what I found is that a couple weeks, I mean, sometimes the participation and engagement on Periscope, you either get a lot, and a couple weeks ago I had a lot, and I had only people who couldn't get on Twitter and participate in the chat, but they got on Periscope, and I was able to take their comments and questions and communicate that on the actual chat. I've also found that I think I speak faster than I type, right? So I'll make comments to people's tweets and the commentary, the ongoing commentary, first on Periscope, and then I think about it. It lets me think, right? So I say it out loud, and sometimes I sound like a complete moron when I do it, and then it lets me kind of filter it out before I post it on Twitter.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Okay, so I have one interesting question for you that popped into my head while y'all were talking. So I've worked for some larger brands and some smaller brands, and brands as a whole are always looking for brand evangelists. Yes. Like you're digging for those on social. If you are hoping for a brand to notice you and pick you up as a brand evangelist, what would be some strategies you would suggest with Periscope?
Okay, so I laugh because there's a particular brand that I am completely fond of, and it's because I drink coffee and I'm dying when I don't have it. So, but I was a brand evangelist for them for a while before I got pregnant, because it's a coffee company, and then when I got pregnant I stopped drinking it and whatever. So I noticed that he got back on Periscope. That his name is David Steingard with Laughing Man. Laughing Man, by the way, is a Hugh Jackman coffee company, and there's a movie called Ducali's Dream. You need to go rent it. It's amazing. So, but just talk about the brand on Periscope, right? So if it's part of your natural everyday life, talk about it. Say how I'm drinking Laughing Man today, or start tweeting about it. And then when you're tweeting, then maybe find an opportunity to actually show people how you're using it on Periscope. By all means, find out their Twitter handle, and if they're on Periscope, follow them on Periscope so that way they know. And just start using their hashtags, using their Twitter, and get them to notice you that way.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just kind of jump all in and be sure you're tagging them, because, I can't ever stress that enough. When I'm teaching Twitter, that's like the biggest thing I see people making the mistake is not tagging. And so if you're trying to, promote these brands and get on their radar, they may not be paying attention. Like, yes, they may be doing some searches and looking for their name. The smart ones are. But just go ahead and tag them. Make it as easy on yourself as possible so that they're going to get that notification and they're going to see you talking about them. But everything Andrea said, I mean, is spot on. Like, yes, that's the way to do it.
Okay, Chase, so how wonderful would it be to be able to spot active Authority Labs evangelists that are actually reaching out to us and saying, hey, I want to talk about your brand?
That'd be awesome. I would love it.
I just want to see Chase and the guys in the office, because they're so talkative, I just want to see what it's like in there.
We actually are when we're here, surprisingly.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
If I can get an Authority Lab Goddess t-shirt, I will be all over it.
Yep, same here.
Just putting it out there.
She made that, man. She's creative.
We'll send them to Michelle, because she added the goddess underneath this. We'll send them to her. And then
Yeah,
she
has to add. Yeah, she's got to add that part. Okay, Michelle, I'll be waiting.
All right, I'll get my paint pens and my glitter out, and I'll fix it all up for you. But I'm hoping, in return for this, Chase, I would love to see some Periscope video of the drones and the robots and all of the other crazy stuff. No, and Benner, if you're watching, we need a tattoo scope.
Yeah, we do. Well, and the other thing that Chase does, which I think would be really cool to Periscope, is they have like team building excursions they go on. And it would be really cool to kind of get to see that, like, you know.
So it's funny, we were talking about Periscope stuff, and I haven't even created an account or even played with it, just because I used to like play with everything when it came out immediately, and I just haven't really dug into it at all. And I've seen some live stream stuff like Justin.tv was a full-on. I mean, there was a whole website just devoted to, and they had apps just devoted to like live streaming anything and everything. And the founder, he basically streamed his entire life all the time through the site. And it was an interesting deal because they ultimately they grew pretty well. It was a large site, but then it kind of plateaued, and they were looking for something else to do or a way to grow more. And they ended up actually launching Twitch, which is the whole gaming live stream deal. So if you're playing the PlayStation, you can live stream yourself playing the PlayStation. And that blew up even more than like Justin.tv did, and they ended up shutting down Justin.tv, and they sold Twitch to YouTube for like, I don't know, it was over $1 billion or something like that. It was pretty crazy. So I never jumped on it because I wasn't sure if, I was just kind of waiting to see what kind of traction it would get. I think it's a really great idea, and I think a lot of these things that we can use. I like the idea of annotating Twitter chats and then being able to use that content somewhere else. And definitely, it's a great way to kind of humanize the brand a bit more and connect with some of those people that are paying attention to you right then. So, we'll see where it goes.
Well, you have 4 women here waiting for you to humanize the brand. Just saying. I've been putting pressure on you for 2 years, and now there's 4 of us.
We do. I mean,
we are watching.
Well, to help Chase out here, I'm not going to totally gang up on you because we have done quite a bit in the last several months with, we're here testing out Periscope and some of the other chats that I engage with on behalf of Authority Labs. We're involved with SEO Talk. We're involved with SEO Chat. I'm looking at some content type chats as well. So keep tuned, guys, because some of this stuff that we're talking about, it's actually in the process of development. We're not just building air castles around the Authority Labs offices.
Well, I'm very, and that's why I reached out to y'all to help with some of that, is because we're just busy and we just don't think about it, and so having you guys to pressure us and help out with us in terms of that kind of stuff has definitely been good, I think. So
yeah. Well, I have to say that out of everyone I've worked with for the last 5 or 6 years, the Authority Labs guys are like the most genuine people. Like, I would trust my children with them, and that's
don't go that far.
That is why I want their customers to see. You know what I mean? I want them to see what I see every day, and I think Periscope and live streaming is a affordable and good way to allow people to see that. Most businesses are always concerned with, can I afford video marketing?
Yes.
How can I afford it? And this allows businesses to afford it.
I address that a lot because from the inviter side of the house, when I do work with them, it doesn't take a lot of money to actually build a video and actually create a video marketing campaign. all you need is a video, whether it's like a smartphone or you want to actually do a recording with another device, and then a little bit of editing. And now I'm a moron, okay? I'm going to completely tell you that I am sometimes really challenged, but if I can figure it out, honey, you can figure it out. And video is all of a couple seconds to maybe a couple minutes, and then a little bit of editing, and then you're good to go. And if you're a big corporation and can spend that kind of money, then do it. But if you're a small guy, let it be more authentic, because that's how you're going to build that trust, and that's what is actually going to drive those conversions. So
right. I agree with that 100%. So, and Madalyn, your voice is like so cool that I'm signing up for your podcast.
This is Mike. I got into podcasting a few years ago, and when I do something, I go all out. I do it right, and I did all this research, and this is the best podcasting mic. It makes me sound so good, and I do a lot of webinars. I do a lot of hangouts like this, so I use it for everything. It is so worth it.
Really cool too. You might
it
not
is.
know that,
I know. I got like this arm thing, like a DJ. It's really cool. I love it.
And Andrea, your circle's behind you. Is that where you keep your notes?
Yeah, so I found these over at Walgreens I'm like a dry erase whore. I need to have them, and I like brainstorm. And I was working on my PhD at one point, and I'm like, okay, I need these. Plus, I'm working, and I do a lot of work from home, and I'm a list person, so it's either Post-its or this. So it's clean right now, but tonight it won't be clean.
Cool.
But by the way, these are also awesome for Periscopes, because I did one for Inviter for an email campaign. So, and I actually had wrote like the subscribe now with an arrow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm getting creative with them.
That's very smart. Well, you see my sign. I just got this.
I saw that.
I love
it. Finally, because Subi Zimmerman, who's known as the Instagram gal, she sells these, and I see her with these signs everywhere, and I asked like, how could I get one? And so they're $49. It is so worth it, and it's made out of wood. It's really nice. So I just hung it up for you guys today. This is the first time people can see it. I'm so excited because that's my big thing is Twitter Smarter. So. Yeah.
Yep. And you have a chat now Thursdays, by the way. We need to plug that because that's awesome.
Yes. So it's interesting because I was the guest on Blog Elevated last night, which is a great bloggers Twitter chat every Tuesday evening at 10 o'clock Eastern. And one of the things that I was talking about is we're talking about hashtags, and I said, well, you always need to look for a hashtag that nobody else is using. And an example is last week, I run the largest musicians Twitter chat for the last 4 years. Every Thursday, the hashtag is #GGChat. Last week, a women's organization decided to do a Twitter chat and call it GG Chat. And they didn't even research and see, in a matter of minutes, you would see that I've been using it, and it's just a lesson in that we don't own the hashtags, and it's important to use the hashtag that other people are not using. Nobody ever uses this hashtag, so I mean we had staked claim to it 4 years ago. So for Twitter Smarter, same thing. I wanted a hashtag that nobody was using, and I've been branding it for the last several years. So today I have an online training course called Twitter Smarter. I have my podcast called Twitter Smarters, Twitter Tips. I started that June 1st, and in the course of 2 months, it's been listened to in 52 countries, which is awesome. And now I started a Twitter chat for it, and I launched it last week. It's every Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern, and it's a lot of fun to just hang out with cool, like-minded people like you guys and just chat about Twitter.
Cool.
Cool. So I have another audience question for you guys. As we've been talking about, okay, what can we do with this? What are our options? All that kind of stuff. And Chase brought up a great point about I didn't want to jump into this too early because I wanted to be sure that there was some longevity, there was some value. I wasn't going to break it. I know I've had issues with the apps crashing and whatever. But the longevity and the audience that it brings to your brand is certainly an important aspect of all of this. And Sash Man posted a question in our Q&A and asked, is there a particular demographic that tends to be more prevalent on Periscope than any other? What kinds of people does Periscope allow us to reach that we don't reach anyplace else?
I'm gonna tell you that anybody and everybody can be on there. I will tell you that I have more of an international audience.
Yes.
Than I do on Twitter. On Twitter I get some people from Europe because I'm Romanian, so I tag Romania stuff all the time, and then I also get people from Australia. But then on Periscope, it's way more diverse, which is awesome. Because then you are really expanding your brand globally, so that's kind of huge and amazing. So, but then I'm also getting like a lot of musicians and people who are really just starting to learn about Periscope and starting to learn about marketing. And I always talk about video marketing, and if you go through my recents, you probably see a video marketing hashtag or video marketing something on there, or SEO or whatever. So people will gravitate to that if they want to learn more about it. So it's definitely more diverse, and you definitely have more geographical reach.
I totally agree. I think there's a great community of people on there, and it's so diverse. It is very international, and of course, it has to do with what time of day. You'll get the Australians if you're broadcasting at the right time of day. I've noticed that. I just get people who are hungry for information. That's been my demographic on there.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you all think that this obsession, I don't know when I say obsession, but, in the 90s we had reality TV and it was like such a shock, like you can actually see into people's lives, and then it turned into scripted and started to suck. Now we're kind of in this world with social media where you're always seeing into people. You know what I mean? Like you're more about their lives and you get to talk with them one-on-one. And I kind of see Periscope as pushing us in a whole different direction of really getting to know this person that you haven't been able to see or talk to before. Mm-hmm. And I think it can be used for businesses, but I think it's fantastic for personal branding if people really ran with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about personal brand because there's some high school kids right now that I see, and I just want to take them and I want to shake them and say, you're being really stupid right now. And there's some college kids that I'm like, are you really freaking going to post about how drunk you are? Are you out of your damn minds? Like, so, I mean, I joke about this, but I'm not joking. When I had my kid, I was on Twitter. I don't know if you remember, Michelle, but I was telling people when I was in the hospital what was going on. Like I wasn't live streaming video because that would be gross. But I mean, he's already got a brand. Okay, my 2-year-old already has a personal brand, and that's super, super important. The earlier you get started, or if you're on, you need to build that brand because all that stuff right now is online, and people can search for you. And when you're looking for a job, or if you're employed already, and I get this all the time, right? So I get recruiters who constantly contact me. But what they'll do is they'll watch me online for like a month, realize that I'm a good fit for their culture, and then call me in and offer me a job. So.
And one thing I want to add on personal brand, I read this really cool article recently, and it said, if you have a young child, go get them a .com and go get them an email address, and actually to go a step further, and this was really cool, and I wish I had thought of this when I had my son 19 years ago. That get an email address and then just don't give it to them until they're 18, but then just like send them stuff, which would be so cool because then when you give it to them, they could just have years of content of them, almost like this online scrapbook you've been creating all these years. I think that is really cool. So doesn't work, mine is 19 now, so it's like, God, I wish I had known that years ago. That would have been a really cool gift.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
It is. Michelle, you got an audience question that came in?
Yes, I just got another audience question, and this dovetails with this idea of personal branding. Specifically asking if they are, schools dealing with Periscope being used by students in the classroom, outside the classroom. Obviously, there could be privacy issues.
Okay, so yes, there's privacy issues, there's safety issues. So I'm not quite sure if schools have even thought about having a policy around social media like this before.
I doubt it.
Yes, I don't think it is.
As soon as this is, it's only been out a few months, really.
Since March. I remember because March 25th is my kid's birthday, and then a week later I'm like, okay, fine, I have to get on for work. So, but schools, if you're listening and you're watching this later now or whatever, you need to have a social media policy, and you need to have it so that way, no, you cannot Periscope in class. And quite frankly, this is where law enforcement should get involved too, right? Because law enforcement. I work for a company that helps do this. They can help monitor threats around schools, and Periscope is one of the things that we offer in our platform. So definitely start monitoring this stuff. If you're not already monitoring social media for school safety, you need to have a policy that restricts not only students but parents. Right? Mm-hmm. So when I pick up my kid, yes, I want to take a video of him at, when he's excited to see me after school, but at the same time, it's like, hold on, I'm putting all these kids at risk here by showing where they are and their school. And so have a policy in place and do it now. And we'll start working with your law enforcement because there's tools out there that can protect your kids.
And what I'm going to add to that is that, yes, all of the above, be proactive and do it now. Unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is schools will do it as it comes up. As it becomes an issue, then they'll set the policy. But it would be great to see the schools and the school districts and, as wide as it can go to start implementing policies now.
Yeah.
And I have my Facebook is private. I have my friends. And I will say my son, but I never say his name. You know what I mean? I'm really careful about that. But I noticed that other parents will openly share pictures of lots of kids. And there's for some families that is a safety issue. I think that's something we should all be kind of aware of. If you're periscoping yourself, great, but it doesn't mean the people around you should be in it or want to be in it. So I think we all have to kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are, what you're doing.
So, Melissa, I'm on the flip side slightly.
Okay.
My life is really, really public, and I tell that to anybody I see or date or whatever. It's like, dude, if you're going to be around me, you're going to end up in social. That's a preface.
Right.
But my Facebook is public. So
okay.
So my kid is part of who I am. I'm a mom, right? So now I do a little bit of mom blogging, but not much. But there are things that I won't do on social, and that's talk about where my kid goes to school. I'll share stories.
Right.
And I won't be specific about where I am with him until after the fact.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I never share the school.
No.
But other parents tag you with the school. You're like, no.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah, I told the school that they can't put his pictures up.
Right.
So, no.
Chase, take notes. These are like little things that we didn't have to worry about. My oldest son is 23. None of these things this was not a factor. I mean, so much has changed in the last 10 years that, so.
Well, and for schools, technology is really a double-edged sword. I mean, we were talking earlier about textbooks and that kind of stuff. A lot of the things that were physical objects, we had textbooks, we had notebooks. There was a lot of things that are now virtual objects in the classroom of today. I know that the schools that my children attend here in Texas have Wi-Fi available. They encourage their students to use their tablet, their smartphone, their whatever, because there is a lot that can be learned by actively using that technology in the classroom. But at the same time, you've got Wi-Fi open. These kids have the password. They are, in essence, able to broadcast, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or Periscope or whatever, what's going on. And very wisely, the schools that my kids attend, although they have internet access, it's moderated. In other words, there are certain apps and websites that are blocked. You cannot access them via that particular Wi-Fi feed.
Yeah.
So, for instance, whenever I am at school, it kind of drives me nuts because I would really, when I'm at school, it's because we're at a play or a choir event or something, and I really would like to share that with the grandparents because they can't be there, but Facebook is blocked on that Wi-Fi. I'm like, okay, I'll share it later.
Yeah, just record a video.
I mean, That's really a smart thing to do. So for those schools that already at least have that blocking policy in place, I would highly recommend that they go back through before school starts this fall and make sure that Periscope, Meerkat, and any of those types of sites and apps are blocked from the Wi-Fi access.
Right.
It helps.
Mm-hmm.
Smart. Well, Andrea and Madalyn, first, thank you so much for all the education. Now I feel like I want to download it and use it and try it out.
Do it. I'm excited.
And can you tell our audience your Twitter handle?
Yes, mine is Andrea. I'm a little bit weird. I'm Romanian, so it's Andrea with 2 E's, C_T. But you can find me easier on Andrea with 2 E's, C.com, and everything's on there.
Cool. And Madalyn?
My everything is Madalyn Sklar. Is so nice to have an unusual name, and so I am at Madalyn Sklar everywhere.com, Twitter. So is MADALYN
Great. Well, thank you so much. We may be poking you all in emails later and asking you for a few of your favorite people where we create a recap. We can tell our audience to check out who you enjoy.
Sure.
And we totally appreciate the time that you gave us today.
Sure.
Well, thank you all for having me. I mean, Melissa, Michelle, and Chase, this has been great. Andrea and I have really been tag teaming, talking about this stuff. This has kind of become our thing, and so anybody that has any questions, feel free to get in touch. We're kind of like doing this little tag team where, you know, you can have us brainstorm and work with you together as a team.
Right.
Great. Thanks.
Well,
now all these parents are taking, emailing their school. We have a Periscope policy. So we did good today. It's a PSA. Yeah. But Michelle, do you have anything you wanted to say before we go?
No, actually, I think that is a wrap, and I want to thank you guys from Authority Labs and our guests and our live audience for tuning in for the Authority Labs Hangout.